Oh, we're going live.
We're
Yeah,
live.
this Hangout is on air live.
I
All right,
mean,
awesome. And people join as they go along. We're also going to have this recorded so we can post it up on YouTube. Just good stuff.
Well,
All right. So, Elizabeth, how about we explain to people exactly what Unmasked Theater Company is?
great.
Do
Well,
you want to jump off?
I'll
Want to
say a
start
few
that?
words. Yeah, I mean, Unmasked Theater Company's mission is to stop the stigma surrounding mental illness by using musical theater. In a short sentence, that's exactly what we're doing.
Right. Essentially, we feel like one of the best ways to get people to empathize with things they don't understand. And there are a lot of mental illnesses out there that people are frankly afraid of. And I don't really think they can emotionally connect or kind of see the humanity behind it. And one of the best ways of having people empathize is to tell them a story, and especially through theater, where that story is being emoted and acted out. So it's one of the ways we really feel like we can change people's minds.
And it's such a nuanced issue, and there's so many layers, especially now when we have all like such controversies over medicine, etc., and treatment methods. That art is a way for us to empower people, I guess, by getting to the heart and the root issues. Unraveling all of the layers is what it allows us to do.
Exactly. Yeah, I would think that's a great way to put it. Emily, how would you go ahead and describe anxiety-free?
so Anxiety for the Community is really more of an online community where our mission is really to educate, assist, and learn about mental health issues and recovery. So we really work with the fact of the more we can learn, the more we can then educate, and then the more we can assist other people in their quest to feel better and start their recovery and just really feel more in control of their lives and not feel as though an illness or a disorder determines their worth and how their life is going to pan out. So we have amazing writers, which we have on the call today. Emily and Phoebe are both writers for ASD.
Yay!
We also love to communicate through social media. Katie runs our Instagram as well. Katie is like a like she does a lot of things for AFC. And essentially what we really want is to build a community of people who don't feel alone in it. So
That's great.
yeah, so personally, when I first got diagnosed with all the 6 anxiety disorders when I was 12 years old, I didn't really have a place where I could go and relate to people that was and that was something that I really needed. And then I said, you know what, let's just create it, and then let's just start this movement where we're more of a community instead of being individuals with disorders. At least we can be a community of people who support and love each other. And I really believe that when you have that, it makes the struggle not so isolating, and when you don't feel alone, you have that courage to really start recovery and feel better. So that's a little bit of the bulk of what ASC is. That's our acronym. And if Emily and Katie want to just touch on what ASC means to them and how it brings really catharsis to their lives to write about their anxiety and to help other people like that, and give them the opportunity to.
Yeah, I mean it's a great opportunity for a connection, like Emily said, with other people who are, you know, they don't want to be going through something alone, and then it's also a really nice chance to have an outlet and, you know, somewhere to talk and write and have someone give you advice and help and be an ear to talk to, shoulder to lean on, that kind of thing. It's really nice to have that there.
Yeah, especially I feel like since like anxiety, along with other like mental illnesses and disorders that we experience, you know, it gets to be so isolating because of again, the stigma, like the negative representation of it in our media as anyone who has anything mentally wrong with them, then like they're undesirable to be around or unstable. And
Right.
that can be so isolating, and it can completely like further the problem.
Yep.
So,
So,
yeah,
I love to say,
solidarity and community is so important.
I love to say like wrong. You know, we label it as wrong, right? Like
Right.
quote,
Yeah.
yeah. With
Yeah,
the-
right. There's something wrong with you, even
Yeah.
though it's like something you're born with and it's something you deal with every day and it's part of who you are. You know? If it's
That's one of the
part
best.
of who you are, it's not something that's wrong with you.
Yeah. That's the best part about being open about it too. Is like so many people have reached out to me since being a part of anxiety-free community and just being open about it on social media. So many of my friends have been like, hey, I had a panic attack today, and I'm wondering if you're willing to talk, and things like that. Or people that I've known for like 10 years being like, hey, I'm feeling really anxious. Like, do you have any tips? And it's amazing to connect with all these people that I might have like not really talked to from high school or like from I don't know, other activities I did when I was younger and things like that. And then you're able to connect with them again in this totally different way that you maybe never expected because of this thing that's wrong with you. It's like kind of
Right.
there's all these, there's a lot of positive that can come out of it, I think, if take the steps to make that happen.
Totally. Totally see that. Well, I know we had a lot of topics for discussion for today. Emily, do we just want to start at the top of the list that we have?
Yeah, let's go through them one by one and just riff upon them.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know the first one right off the bat is having like anxiety, having depression, having any form of mental illness, whether that be like bipolar disorder or addiction or any of these things, and then being in a romantic relationship and how that works. What thoughts do we have on this, ladies?
So I'm actually gonna give the right of speech to Emily Green for has a really good thing to say about this. And
That sounds great.
For me, a big thing that helps me is being really honest. So the more honest I am, the more comfortable I feel. So if I voice my concerns and voice that, I'm feeling anxious about this event, or I'm feeling anxious about tonight, and I don't feel like going, and just being really honest about it and not having to sort of skirt around it and make up excuses and stuff like that. I feel like when I internalize it, it makes the anxiety worse. So if I kind of express that, especially in a relationship, I think it's really important to just be completely honest. That's my main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Sorry. Has that ever like negatively affected a relationship for you? And if it has, how have you gotten around it?
It has. Yeah, I've been in that situation where I express myself to someone in that situation and explain this is how I am, and it hasn't been recepted well. It has. So in that situation, I've kind of decided, because this person is not accepting of my needs and sort of how I like to go about things, it's maybe they're not kind of right for me, and that's okay, and it just doesn't match up. So.
And then Katie has a really good thing to say about this. And do you want to say it, Katie, or do you want me to say it?
Yeah, I can say it. It's kind of like just what Emily said. It's like, I feel like when you're afraid to be honest with someone, you're afraid of the judgment of going to come from being honest, right? So that's really like the only reason you wouldn't be honest is that you're afraid of that judgment. But if you're going to get that judgment from someone that you want to be with, like Emily said, is that really a relationship that's good for you? Is that really a relationship you want to be in? Someone who is going to judge you for that is probably also not going to be supportive, or is probably not going to understand when you need things and things like that. So I think it's just really that fear that needs to be overcome. Love before fear, as we say.
Totally.
A big thing that I find is that when we start getting super anxious about relationships is because a lot of the times we're associating our worth with them. So we think that this person has to have certain opinions about us, and if they don't think well of us, or they don't agree with us, or they shame us, that really takes away all of our worth as a person.
Oh,
So when you're entering a relationship with someone who has anxiety disorders, if you enter it in a way that you're not very, very, very self-accepting of yourself, it's going to become kind of a struggle because you're relying on someone else to accept you. And that is something that you have absolutely no control over. So you're essentially giving your power stick, as I like to call it, away to someone else. And you say, here you go, here's my power stick. You decide what I feel about myself. Right?
oh wow, yeah.
So the thing here with the relationships and the anxiety, I think the one piece of advice that I give is, like, the main one is that really, if you don't accept yourself, you're going to try to get someone else to accept you, and that's most likely going to be a very destructive battle for you. So coming into a relationship and being super honest is easy, or when you feel very accepting of who you are and your needs and your desires, right? Where
Right.
going into a relationship, not feeling so solid in how you feel about yourself or how loving you are towards yourself, and giving all that power to someone else, saying, here you go, again, take care of how I feel about me, that is really externalizing basically your worth, and that's something that is dangerous in the sense of it can create more anxiety, because what if that person doesn't react in a way that is always supportive to you? So that's kind of like my 2 cents on the anxiety in the relationships, which is a process, but when you really express yourself and you're honest and you're direct and you accept yourself, regardless of anybody else's opinion or reaction to that, you haven't internalized your anxiety. And if you accept yourself, you still feel safe and worthy. So,
Right.
yeah, that's kind of like my 2 cents. What would you guys say from Unmasked? Like, Elizabeth, do you have anything that you.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's about, you really have to know yourself. If you don't know, like, who you are, and like you said, you're not accepting of that, then you're going to run into issues. It's like accepting that this specific thing is a part of the way you operate, and like a lot of people don't understand that if they've never had to deal with it, or they've never had any like relatives or friends that have had to deal with similar situations. In many ways, these kind of like struggles are sort of like they can be isolated because people don't talk about them initially, but as you become, I guess, more of a mature person or learn how to cope better, you're able to figure that out before you get yourself into a very sort of like emotionally abusive or damaging relationship, because you already have your sense of self coming from within, and it's not apart from your own flaws. Your flaws are part of yourself, and you're accepting of all of that.
I
Oh
love.
yeah,
I love that.
absolutely. And I would
Mhm.
say, coming at it from another angle, talk about depression in a relationship, in a
Yes, let's.
romantic relationship. One of the most important things I would say is to know your support system. And if you're in a relationship, whoever your partner is, you have to be able to have a support system that extends beyond them.
Mm.
Um, just because it can be a lot, to depressed, to have suicidal tendencies, and you have to be careful so that your partner doesn't feel solely responsible for keeping you alive or happy. And they have to understand that, yes, this is a chemical imbalance, this is something you can't help. And if you get in a funk and it's following a fight, it's not their fault. They're not the ones responsible for sending you into a depressive tailspin. Um, yeah, so essentially it's like communication to help people understand what's going on. Um, but like a huge experience of mine, I was in a relationship for 4 years. He felt so responsible for my depression all the time, thinking that he wasn't doing things right. And we really just need to keep up that communication that if I'm sad, it's not his fault. You know, if I want to exit the world, it's not his fault. And I need to have you need to have a wide support system so that you can keep yourself afloat and they, again, don't feel solely responsible for you in a romantic relationship, because I feel like that happens a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's really important, yeah.
I think another really important part of that conversation of being honest is saying, like, being able to say that I feel like I'm a burden to you, and knowing whether or not that's true for your partner. Because for some partners, for example, my partner, I've said that to him. I've been so upset. I've been in just, crying every day kind of thing, and I'm not sure what to do because it's always when I'm with him, and I say, I'm sorry that right now this is happening, and every time I'm with you this is happening, and I feel like a burden, and I'm putting all this stuff on you, and he can tell me that it's okay. And so I think that's huge, being able to just be honest about that feeling in itself as someone with anxiety or depression or whatever it is, to be able to say, like, I feel like I'm putting a lot of this on you, and like you said, to be honest and say, like, it's not you, because I think that's a part that, like you said, it feels like a burden to that person if they think it's them, but as soon as they know that it's not necessarily the supporting you, that's the part that feels like a burden. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great point to add. Exactly. So yeah.
It's also like you have to know, like, feel comfortable enough with the person, and from the beginning, it's great to understand that they understand you, instead of like getting into a relationship and then like a year down the road or 2 years down the road, it's like something terrible happens and you see that, oh, they totally don't understand, or they don't really care for you. A way of like telling if it's a healthy relationship, I guess, is, like, could this person see you at your worst, like in a gown and like not eating, and like still like value you for you and see your potential, like see the real you despite all the layers of insecurity or whatever it is you're going through. And like somebody telling you, oh, I'm going to take you to see a doctor if you don't straighten up, like that's not what you need to hear. And like somebody that is understanding and could, yeah, like see you at your worst is somebody that, and still love you, is somebody that is better to be with.
Right.
And I would add another thing on that is just like I said before, like, people, like, no one is perfect, and you have to realize, as someone with the mental illness, if your partner makes a mistake, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't love you or they're not willing to be supportive. Sometimes people just don't necessarily know what to say in the moment to you when something happens, or they might not know how to support you if you're at, say, a birthday party and it's like a happy event, like you should be happy, but you're not. You're feeling depressed, or you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling, I don't know, like you're feeling pressured to eat things you don't want to eat, or like things like that. Like all these things that could be going on in your head and they don't know how to support you doesn't necessarily mean that they don't love you or they don't care about you, but I think it is really important to have a partner that's willing to try and willing to make changes. So it's not like you go to 10 birthday parties in a row and they never figure it out. It's like each time they might get a little more supportive. They might figure out kind of tricks to see when you might be uncomfortable and say, like, how can we fix the situation, things like that. So I think it's really important to see the ongoing change, and even if they continue to make mistakes here and there, I think it's just it's the effort that really matters, I think, in a partner.
Right. To piggyback, unless we want to add more to this topic, but to kind of segue, our next topic is, what do you do when a parent doesn't accept your mental illnesses or doesn't know how to handle your anxiety, your depression, your addiction, whatever it is you're going through? What would be our advice to our community here? Because that's a very difficult issue.
Big one. Yeah. I think something that's important to note is that sometimes for parents and friends, family members, it can be sometimes hard for them to accept that someone they love is having a hard time, that someone they love is struggling. They don't want to believe that anything's wrong. So then in turn, we kind of we try to act fine, we act happy around them. So the main thing that I find is that it's going to take some time for your parents if they don't understand. It could take some education, some proof of real life examples, how you're dealing with this in your everyday life. Just sometimes it takes them some time. They might be dealing with their own kind of stigma themselves, their own kind of self-blame issues. They might think that they're kind of taking that on, like, oh, what did I do wrong as a parent? How come this is happening to my child? That kind of thing. So it's and another thing too is what I did in my experience is when I got my diagnosis, I let myself be okay with it first and accept it first, and then I went on and said, this is my diagnosis, this is what's going on with me, and then I allowed them to be okay with it too. So I think that's important.
Totally. One thing I did is, one big thing is to include your parents in your treatment and your recovery process.
Yeah.
I come from a very small town where just depression really wasn't discussed. It wasn't really understood. You know, I had a lot of self-harm issues that I did when I was a teenager, and most people wrote it off as like attention seeking or manipulation. Like, I went away for a summer and I had a huge, like, anxious, depressive breakdown because I was surrounded by people I didn't know and I couldn't go home and it was a lot of pressure, and I would call my mom crying all the time, and my dad would be like, oh, Kathy, that's my mom. He'd be like, Kathy, she's just trying to manipulate you to come out there and, like, give her stuff. And, you know, that was incredibly hurtful, and didn't have any idea what was going on. And so later, as I got older and I started getting help and I started getting treatment, you know, the thing to do was to bring my dad into basically into a, like, parent-child therapy session with me.
Yeah.
So that my therapist could actually explain to him, like, this is like a chemical issue, like this is an actual, like, health issue. It's not your child, like, acting out and being a crappy person. You know, like, I needed people to explain to him what was going on.
I did the same.
Yeah.
Oh, what now?
I did the same thing. I brought my mom in. I went to a couple therapy sessions, and then when I felt ready, I brought her in as well and had the therapist help explain with me together to her. So it's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, education, I think, is one of the most important things when it comes to people who don't really understand what's going on with you. Because there's a lot of ignorance out there, and a lot of people who really want to blame you for your problems and say that you're not trying hard enough, oh, you're not working hard enough, you're just lazy, that's why you're sad, is because you can't get a job and that's your own fault. And it's just, these people need to be educated because they can't see what's wrong with you. And of course, like, that's just such a primal, basic thing. If we can't see what's wrong, it's hard for us to believe what's going on. So we need to educate people in the warning signs of mental illness.
Yeah.
So they can actually accept you for what's going on.
Absolutely. And I like what you said about education is probably the best thing for people who don't completely understand. And a thing that I like to give as a tool or as a tip is just to really, if all else fails and your parent is, like, really making things worse, because I know a lot of examples that I've received over the past year on anxiety for community really has to do with my parent is threatening to do this to me or do that to me, or
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
you know what I mean, just, like, really being very unsupportive, so it makes the anxiety actually worse. If all else fails, what I say is to write down your psychological symptoms and then your physical symptoms. Okay, so then you can really show them, here, this is how I feel. And if all else fails and they don't know what to do and you don't know what to say, I say go up to them, sit down if possible, and say, can I just talk to you about how it feels in my body right now? And just describing that will allow you to really externalize what you're feeling internally. And just saying it out loud will maybe most likely make them understand that, okay, this is also happening on a physical level. So that's where the psychological symptoms and the physical symptoms, if you pinpoint them and you describe them, people, especially parents, are able to understand it a little bit better. So that's kind of like how I say you can really kind of shed the layer and explain how you're feeling. Make a list yourself first before you go into a conversation, and then show them this is how I feel on a daily basis. And then once you've done that, you say, can I make a plan with you to actually be able to get some help to feel better, because it's really hard to keep like getting up every single day. I don't know how long I could do this. I'm going to need some backup help because of these symptoms. And then you show them the list. So that's kind of like my little strategy for the parents.
That's great. No, that's so concise. And it's a great way for people to actually viscerally understand what's going on. Because I know with anxiety and depression, like I actually, up until pretty recently, up until the past couple of weeks, I had an entire month where my heart rate was running at 180, and it just wouldn't stop. And it's because I was that anxious.
Yeah, I've
that
gotten
anxious all the time.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, like, I ended up in the hospital, and doctors were baffled about it. They're like, your heart shouldn't be going that fast. And I'm like, you know, there are real physical symptoms to this stuff.
I relate to that. When I used to get panic attacks, every single day. And
My goodness.
yeah, no, it was really, really bad. And because of that, I would always repeat, like, I'm dying, like, fix me, or, like, I need to go to the hospital. I would always, like, faint, too, because that's how I would, like, live panic attacks. And the doctors were so kind of confused about the fact that I was having panic attacks every single day that they thought, okay, something's wrong with her heart. So they made me go through many, many tests just to make sure my heart didn't have a problem. But all along, there was absolutely nothing wrong with my actual heart. It was just a symptom of anxiety. So a lot of people think anxiety is only like you're worrying about things. But no, it can be very physical, to the point where doctors are thinking that there's something wrong with your heart when there's not. It's just a symptom of what's going on psychologically.
There's so many things. Like, the list goes on and on and on, so much further than your heart. Like, just personally, myself, I've experienced, like, breathing difficulties, stomach difficulties, headache, muscle pain, nausea, like, so many things. And that's just me. Like, some people get, like, really extreme chest pain. They think they're having a heart attack. Like, some people, like, faint and get dizzy or throw up. Like, there are so many things. And that's just, it's not just, like, myself, it's other people, but it's also just anxiety. Like, there's a whole other set of symptoms that go with depression. There's a whole other set of physical symptoms that go with, you know, eating disorders, and, like, the list goes on and on and on. And, like, I think Elizabeth said at the beginning, like, it is all so nuanced, and the whole topic of mental health goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So it can be really hard to explain to someone what that is. And, like I was saying earlier, that I think there's more that you really come to them when you're feeling that way than feeling that you feel that way. They would rather than you know, suffer, I guess.
Definitely. So what would we do with the next question again? Like, if we have more on this topic, great. What do you do then with being accepted in the workplace? Because that's especially where it gets hairy, with the not coming in because you don't feel well, or like having a panic attack while you're working. How do we navigate that? How do we function in the workplace?
It's tough, especially when you don't have an employer who understands your anxiety or depression. You have to kind of, the way that I do it, I make it known. I'm very honest with my employer, and it works for me. I ask for more flexibility in my schedule, so that if I'm having a day where I'm not feeling up to getting into work, I can call and say, this is how I'm feeling. I don't feel comfortable at work today. And then I have that flexibility there where it doesn't make me feel anxious about going into work if I don't feel up to it. And another thing too is I ask for restructuring of tasks. So when if you manage to get yourself into work, but you're not feeling up to dealing with one-on-one with people because you're not feeling great in yourself so you can't sort of project that sociability, that happiness, I ask to be just sort of kept in the background, stuff like that. So for me, it's a lot, again, about honesty and just kind of really voicing what makes me comfortable, what accommodates me being able to work easier in the workplace. So
Absolutely. One thing that I majorly utilize, again, work is hard because sometimes you have employers who just don't understand and aren't willing to work with you. And, if you don't have a doctor's note.
Exactly.
And that's a real place that we're in our society. Sometimes there's not something you can do about that. And if that is the case, you do still have power, and that power is coping skills. And that's something that I've been realizing more and more, from like the therapy I've done, and the doctors I've seen, is before I go to work, I really just gotta because of like the nature of my diagnosis, I have to get up like an hour and a half before I even have to get ready to go to work. So I can sit there and be like, you're going to work.
Get in the mindset.
Right. You have to get in the mindset. You have to meditate. You have to plan. For me, a big thing is to have it a part of my routine, a part of my schedule. And while I'm at work, to be able to find those moments of quiet and meditation, those places for me. And I can still be doing my job, physically doing it, but being able to take a mental breather, center myself, and carry on with my work. Do any of you guys have any good suggestions for coping skills for anxiety? What works best for you?
Specific coping skills for feeling anxious in the moment, or do you mean sort of having your coworkers understand your anxiety and things like that?
I would say first let's tackle, say you're at work and you're about to have a panic attack. What would be your plan of action?
Okay, so for me, I've pretty much conquered, I think, avoiding panic attacks before they become a thing.
Good.
And this is the most cliche kind of thing that every anxiety sufferer has heard before, but breathing is so powerful, and I didn't really understand that for a long time. I used to get really frustrated when people would say oh, do your breathing. I'd be like, you don't think I've tried that? It doesn't work. But it really does work if you're doing it right. And the thing that's really the reason breathing doesn't always work is if you're breathing too fast, you're going to hyperventilate, and if you hyperventilate, your hands and your arms and your face and your chest and your neck, everything can go tingly and numb, and that just makes panic worse because that's a really weird sensation. So that's why breathing didn't really work for me before, because I would try to count to 10, and I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is 2-second breaths, which is really fast breathing. So now what I do is when I'm counting, I don't try to get to 10 anymore. I try to get to 6, because I find that for me 6 is just sort of the magic number. If I'm trying to get to 10, I'll just take in too much air, or I'll try to get to 10 too fast. So I just count to 6 in, and then usually 4 or 5 out. And I count extremely slow. I'm counting to 6 as slow as I think I should, and then I start counting even slower than that, because I know the slow that I think is slow when I'm anxious is probably not that slow. So I count even slower than I think is slow, And it actually was really powerful. Like a couple weeks ago, I was in a grocery store, and it was like just late, and I had a really long day, and I was just tired, and my body was like, go home and go sleep. And I was with friends, and I couldn't like really get out of the situation, and I just breathed, and it was amazing because it did take a little while, like maybe 10 minutes or so, but it worked, and there was no panic attack, and there was no, like, the physical anxiety went away, and I find that that really helps with the like shortness of breath feelings, sometimes like nauseous feelings. Like one counselor told me one time that your body literally can't be anxious in that state of relaxation. So I just think of that. That's sort of like my mantra when I'm breathing. I'm thinking like my body cannot be anxious once I get to the point of relaxation. So my goal through this breathing is just to relax my body and like sink into that feeling of filling myself up with the breath and then getting rid of the breath that I don't need right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that that one thought of that my body can't be anxious in that relaxed state like really helps me through that kind of breathing because I'm just I know exactly what the goal is. I know the feeling in my body that I'm looking for, and like each breath helps me to lead to that feeling. So that's huge for me.
Great.
Also mindfulness.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh my.
Yeah, I can talk about mindfulness if you want to know about mindfulness.
I mean, I feel like there should always be time for mindfulness.
But it is huge just being in the moment, and like if you're anxious, more often than not you're thinking like I need to get out of this situation, I want to be somewhere else. Or like you're either worrying about the future or worrying about the past or worrying about, you know, what's your next move, like how are you going to get out of this? How are you going to escape? Things like that. And like just looking at yourself and being like I am in my body and I'm okay and I'm safe and whatever is happening around me, like I can feel the air, I can hear my computer fan going right now, I can see all of your little videos moving. That's like huge because I could be thinking of 100 other things, but I'm in this moment right now and there's only a limited amount of things that I can focus on, and that's like it's huge to just be like I am safe right here and there's no reason for my body to be freaking out like that, basically.
Right.
Similar to her approach, you know, for me, it's I'm a very spiritual person in certain regards, so I apply the same technique. You know, it's just sort of this like you have to remind yourself that like for in the way I approach it is like everything can be at rest and everything can be at peace. You just have to remember that what you're experiencing is like sort of an illusion in a way, like because when you make decisions based out of anxiety, you're making decisions based out of fear, and if you remember that like all like if you just think of it in terms of like love, you just like try to put yourself in a state of love and peace where you're not just relax and know that like there's so many things that are out of your control, and like you have to just go about your day and do what's put in front of you. That's all you're required of, like all you're meant to do here on the earth. Like you can't control other people's actions, and that's usually a lot of times where anxiety comes from. So for me, I take like a spiritual philosophical approach, which actually has like in a way, not, you know, it's your problems are never solved, but for me it is my therapy, because like I don't have to like supplement myself with medications or anything, because I've been practicing it for so long. So now I'm able to just maintain that sense of peace on a daily basis.
That's
Love
awesome.
that. Yeah.
One tidbit that I just thought of listening to you guys talk. A lot of my anxiety comes from PTSD. I've been assaulted both physically and sexually in my life. And one great exercise, I'm not really sure why this works, but I want to share it in case that it works for other people. One therapist who specialized in PTSD taught me that whenever I was in a situation that I perceived to be threatening or triggering, is to mentally create a extension of yourself that is purely a guardian and protects you. And it can be anything. Like, it can be like a sphere of light, like a force field. The thing I personally have, because I don't know, I'm a giant dork. It's pretty much like a dire wolf that I visualize between myself and the thing I find threatening. And it helps me create a safe space and kind of create boundaries for myself that I can maintain, I guess, spatially, geographically from the thing that is making me panic. And it also just helps me take all of, I guess, the scared thoughts, the scared energy, the scared focus that's happening in my mind, and really beam it into an image. Focus on an image. And in a way, it's like being present, mindfulness, breathing. But that technique is something that has really made me feel more in control of the panic that happens when I'm triggered. I don't know if anyone's been taught anything similar, but
I like that.
I can't remember the name of it, whatever that technique is.
Hey, I have a question. Do you guys see me still?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
I see your adorable profile picture where you're very peaceful.
I don't know why my camera's off, and I don't know how to put it back on, so maybe that's just going to be the picture.
Okay. I think my network is also fading out, so if it does, it's been good chatting with all of you.
Oh,
And we just lost Katie if you look down on the...
Yeah, she's gone.
oh no, Katie!
She'll come back, I'm guessing?
I hope so.
She'll come back.
Okay. Okay.
I believe it.
Yes. No, that's a huge thing, Megan. The way this PTSD trick is a huge one. Yeah, for sure. I hope many people take that and start practicing it, because if you see it differently, your perspective is your power, right? So
Exactly. And it's cool because it comes from you. It's like this sense of having something protect you, but also it's you protecting you. It's kind of like this
It helps you locate yourself.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Absolutely. It's a great way of locating yourself and monitoring yourself, and again, helping yourself keep physical boundaries, mental boundaries. There is a line that is not going to get crossed.
yeah.
And it can't be crossed because, hey, I have a direwolf there and nothing's going to be crossing that line.
Yeah.
So, no, it's incredibly beneficial and helpful.
Absolutely. And Katie's back. So hey, Katie.
Hey, Katie.
I don't know if she can hear. Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, so that's huge. All tools, and I'm sure that on both our Facebook pages, either the Anxiety Free or the Unmasked Theater Company, if anybody wants to give those kinds of tricks and start talking about their own and how they tame, let's call our anxiety the beast, how they tame the beast, we would love to hear it. We would love to hear different tricks and tips, because then we can apply it and intertwist it with ours. And I don't know, I just love the relatability aspect, so I love when we share our stories, essentially.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a great way to follow up this conversation.
Yeah.
Is tomorrow we should post up some of the little golden nuggets. I have so many that I'm taking away from you guys. I can't wait to share.
Right. So good. So, do you think it's safe to go on to the body image with summer coming up?
Oh, yes. You want to lead?
Yeah, so I think this is something that is huge when we come and we start talking about comparison. So we're comparing our bodies to absolutely everyone, basically at every time. Well, every time we have a chance to gain our computer in our lap or have our phone in our hand, because social media is making it so easy for us to start comparing ourselves and our bodies and our lives in general, actually, to other people's lives and to other people's bodies. And I feel this is what I call the comparison game. I call it the comparing blues. And it gets you kind of into this depressive kind of funky energy where you feel like you're not good enough, and you feel as though other people are way better than you. And then that is when, in spiritual terms, I would say that's when you start separating yourself from people and living based out of your ego and living based out of fear, essentially. So what is happening when we're comparing ourselves essentially is that we're giving people meaning. So I always say, like, people are neutral until we give them meaning. So we're either thinking, okay, this person's way better than me, or this person's way worse than me. So you're putting yourself on a social scale that means your worth again. So it's all about, what are you giving power to, in the sense of what is determining your worth? Like, is it your body? Is it the way your life is going? With the body image issues, it's something that's coming up really, really, really intensely, I find, the more and more we go with getting really deep into Instagram or Facebook, or really just starting to see ourselves as we are less than. And I think with the body image issues going into summer, of course we can talk about eating disorders, and talk about how that affects people's lives, and how eating disorders are a disorder in their own class that become actually very dangerous. Like, statistically speaking, eating disorders are the most fatal kinds of disorders. So, mental disorders anyway. So for me, I say, let's maybe talk a little bit about how to stop comparing and how to feel worthy no matter if other people are having great lives as well. Like, something that I love to say as a mantra that goes something along the lines of, some people are doing great things. Some people have great bodies. I'm one of those people too. Like, we're not different. We're all one, in the sense of, we don't get to say that we are better than someone, and we don't get to say that we are worse off than someone, because we truly are all the same, just in different circumstances. That's all it is.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe, Emily, you want to share your comparing blues tactics?
Yes. So the one thing that in relation to comparison, the one thing that I do, especially when sort of summer comes around, you have to wear a bikini, that kind of thing. I find myself, someone who's suffered with body image issues and body dysmorphia my whole life, since I was as young as I can remember. The one thing is I have to remember is I am my own worst critic. So all of this kind of information that my brain is sending me about my body and how it looks and stuff like that is really very critical. And realistically, if you think about it, people on the street aren't going to look at you and pick apart every single part of what you're wearing, what you look like, how your stomach looks, how your legs look, that kind of thing. It's a lot of that is kind of in here, and it comes from you. So the way that I kind of combat that, again, is, like Emily said, try not to compare yourself. Try not to get into that cycle of the comparison blues of how you are lesser than someone, with that, how their stomach looks or how their legs look, that kind of thing. So it's tough, but once you kind of get in that mindset, it's easier to think about, my body is, I love my body, I love my legs, I love how they work for me. They allow me to run, they allow me to walk, I'm very blessed, that kind of thing. So I try and really focus on, instead of being critical to myself, I try and be loving.
Right. I think one important thing to acknowledge is body image and the dysmorphia we suffer when we think about it. It is so pervasive in our country because, like, you don't have to have any form of mental illness to suffer from it, because it comes at us from all angles, from our media, about like how we're supposed to look, and it's very insidious. Like, even like the Dove commercials that are like, you don't have to wear makeup to be beautiful, but at the same time, in order to look naturally beautiful, you have to buy our soap and face cream.
Yeah.
Everything is constantly telling us that we have to be skinny, and white women, and cis women on top of that. And I think one of the most important things you can do to make this better is just to be constantly having those inclusive conversations about, like, you can be, like, big, small, like, black, white, boy, girl, it doesn't matter. Like, this isn't exclusive to just women either. Like, we gotta constantly have a community where, like, no matter who you are, your body's great. Because we're getting attacked on, like, all sides when it comes to our media about who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to look, and unless we're constantly, like, banding together and combating that,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a forever problem.
And that's the thing that we were kind of talking about earlier today, like in Anxiety Free Community. We were really talking about how, like, what happens is that we really start to obsess over different things as society moves on. Like, the society was really stuck on let's be skinny, let's be skinny, let's be skinny. So people were really into size 0, size 0, size 1. But now society is doing a new trend where you want to be fit and you want to be muscular and you want to be healthy, and that is taking away the pressure from super skinny, but then it's pressure that you're going to have a certain body to have a beautiful body. So it's kind of the same thing with just transferring addiction to controlling how we're supposed to live.
Totally. Yeah, it's pretty tough. Especially one thing that really gets me, and you see it everywhere all the time, it's constantly, like, ads for, like, are you beach body ready? And I just want to be like, my body's beach body, like, all year round. Like, I don't have to do anything special to go hang out on the sand in a swimsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
All you need to be bikini ready is to get a bikini.
Yes, Katie, I was trying to remember that quote.
What was that quote? Can you say it again?
All you need to do to be bikini ready is to get a bikini. That's the only criteria there is. Doesn't matter what your body looks like. Just put on a bikini and you're good to go.
Right? Bikini ready. 24/7.
The other thing I kind of like to remember for myself is that, like, no one has everything. Like, no one has that perfect body that you see everywhere. But, like, everyone has something, or, like, probably several things, that someone will go to them and say, like, oh, I really love that about you. Like, I really love your eyes, or I really love your curves, or I really love your hair. Like, whatever it is. Everyone has that. And, like, people, I feel like, beat themselves up so much because they don't feel like they have everything. And they forget that they have other things. And not to mention these physical traits, but, like, just, like, your intelligence, your kindness, your compassion. It's like, those things should be more important. If someone's giving you a compliment on your intelligence, you should be, like, really happy about that. More happy than if someone's like, oh, I really like, I don't know, like your bikini outfit, or, like, whatever it is, you know? Like those outer things are, like, great. It's awesome if you feel good about that, and everyone should feel good about that. But at the same time, it's like all of these really important characteristics get overshadowed by our looks, which is something we don't choose. And all these other things are things that we can develop throughout our whole lives, and they get just pushed under the whatever carpet, I guess you could say, or whatever. And yeah, they're just brushed aside, and it's like, oh, but as long as you're doing your squats, like, it's fine, you know?
I wish that was true. You know what I mean?
If you do, yeah, imagine the golden rule in life was if you do squats, you're fine. I would do squats.
Yeah.
All your problems will magically go away.
Yeah.
But it's actually true. Like, you joke about it, but you do hear those messages all the time, and it's like, oh, if you get that perfect body, you'll have everything else. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. That's not the only thing that matters.
Absolutely. And I think like with the body image, it's like another thing that we give power to. And then the more we externalize our power, the less we have internal power, and then the less we feel super loving and compassionate towards ourselves.
Right.
You know?
Like, you can't give people, especially like the mass
Yeah.
of people that we exist in, you can't give them all the power and be like, you decide if I'm worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my external self. Like, that's just that's getting into a whole barrel of trouble, because
You can't control
they're never going to tell you that you're worth it because they don't know who you are, and you need to have your own power and your own strength if you're going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's like Emily says I think it's in the book. It's in the book, right? If you say like you are your own safe person, so it's amazing to have support systems and people who will validate you and say like, yeah, you're worth it and you're amazing. But like when it really comes down to it, like you are that person that needs to believe it, because 1,000 people could tell you, and if you don't believe it, it's not gonna have any effect on you. So like,
yeah. I don't know where I wrote this, but I remember writing this. Like other people like aren't like the view. They're only there to enjoy the view with you. So you create the view essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. What would we say, one thing I really want to add to our discussion is sort of the idea of glamorizing mental illness.
Yeah.
For example, there's a lot of glamorization of like anorexia and bulimia. Like there's a lot of like, you're so lucky you can keep yourself skinny. You know, I don't know if it was Meghan Trainor who made the slip up of saying like, I've never been strong enough to have an eating
Yeah, that was her. Yeah.
That's a messed up thing to say.
This is something I was by myself driving like a couple days ago, and I was thinking like, why would she say it? Like I was like mad about it by myself, in the sense of, again, like I think it's where people are confusing like mental disorders or mental illnesses as general things, such as like comparing anxiety to stress and comparing depression to sadness, like just regular kind of like I'm just sad because something happened, and then comparing eating disorders to kind of like a regular eating diet type thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And then there's like other issues. Like I've known people like this where like, I'm an artist, you guys are writers, where it's like this perception where like if you're gonna be like an intellectual, creative type in any way, shape, or form, it helps to be a depressed alcoholic, and everyone thinks that's so romantic. You're living nowhere, you drink too much, and it must really help your writing. And it's like, I've written some half-decent things during some of my, like, abuses of alcohol, but, like, ultimately, it just set me back. And I just really frustrated when people glamorize my unhealthy, like,
behavior.
Yeah, I think this has to, like, I think a lot of people think that like mental disorders or like anxiety or depression, like this is something that I've seen in my life, and I'll get super honest here. People really think like it's because I do this for a living and like this is like my life now. A lot of people I feel think that I'm this strong, amazing type of like inspirational person, and then they kind of think, okay, like a mental disorder is like this interesting like thing that makes you super deep and like strong and blah 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 blah. And I think that they forgo understanding that not really. Like I got to the point where I feel good mostly. I have more good days than bad days, and they don't really see the struggle that and the things that I went through to get to that point, where they think, okay, she's really interesting because she can write about it, or she speaks out about it. How strong of her. And that whole aspect is great because it gets people talking about it. But then at the same time, a mental disorder is not like this great, cool, deep, awesome, mystical thing. It can be like a very hard emotional roller coaster to live every single day. So I think like now that comes into play into my life, I really recognize the fact that yeah, I am strong. Like, yeah, I did get myself out of it, and I do effort every single day, and, I don't consider myself a weak link whatsoever. However, it's not an interesting roller coaster of emotions. Like, it doesn't give me an up to anything, and it's an illness. It's a disorder that, will be with me the rest of my life that I will have to manage every single day. So I think there's something to be said about the fact that we really need to just understand that it's not something that cures overnight, and that it's a constant effort that we're always doing. So let's not glamorize it. When you feel better and you're recovered, that's amazing. Let's praise you. Let's celebrate you. But at the same time, also remembering that it's not going to go away forever. It's going to flare up and it's going to come back, and you also deserve love and attention when that does happen.
Exactly. And I also think, it's a weird backwards form of stigma.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if people think like you're living this mysterious, amazing life being an alcoholic and a friggin' addict,
yeah,
like, they're gonna think you're doing it like you're purposely doing it to like enhance your creativity or something, and then people aren't listening, people aren't helping, people are blaming, people are being ignorant, and it's just like this weird catch-22 that you can experience in your life. And I've had it where people, like, they don't want me to get better.
Yeah,
like,
that's
they
very.
want me to keep drinking, and they want me to keep smoking and staying in, like, secluded spaces, and because they think, like, oh, well, you're going to get a lot of, like, you're going to be really creatively productive, and it's like, but I also, like, want to have a life.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to make art when I'm healthy, when I'm happy.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said with the glamorization of mental illness, but I feel it's also tricky to answer that in a way that doesn't anger anybody, because sometimes you say your own opinion and then someone's like, that's not how I lived it, and then they get very upset with you and they think that you don't get it, and then it kind of becomes a conflict.
Oh, yeah.
We should not be in a fight with each other. We should actually be supporting and loving each other, regardless of how our individual battles are.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Emily, about the social media aspect, and that being like an inspiration and writing blogs and being honest about it. Like, I wrote a blog in Mental Health Awareness Week last year, and it was just like my anxiety story, and that is also on the Anxiety Free community website. It's on my personal blog. It's like all over the place now. But when I originally posted it, I got I don't know, a couple, 100-something likes. So it's like all of these people that liked it are like, yeah, like, you go, like, way to tell your story.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, there's that glamour because they saw me being like brave and showing what I've done and all these things. But it's like, how many of those people would like it, like, if it was in cyberspace, or like it if I was if they saw me, like, doing the actual thing, like crying every day and trying to figure it out and working so hard to be like, I don't want to feel like this today. I'm waking up today and saying I am going to be happy today, and then it not working that day. Like, how many of those people would be there and be like,
yeah, you're
okay,
so strong.
I understand your mental illness and I support it, and I see that it's not just this inspiring, like, great thing, because it's like a lot of the time it's not. Like, obviously it wouldn't be a disorder if it was just awesome all the time.
So,
but yeah.
And yeah, that's such a good point to bring up. And in my writing, I know, like, both Emily and, like, Katie are super aware of, like, how I write, but what I really try to find, like, do you guys remember that piece that I wrote called Recovery, and I had, like, a picture of me on the beach, and then I had another picture of me crying?
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love that.
That's what I was thinking of. That's literally what I was thinking of when I
and I really wrote that piece because this was, like, just a few months ago, and I was switching medications, and I was just, like, having really bad withdrawal, and one night I was seriously, like, really, really low, and it had been a low that I had not felt in years, and it kind of just, like, made me realize that a lot of people think recovery is, like, you get to recovery and then you're totally fine forever and ever and ever and ever. And I think it's important to just be really authentic and be really open about the fact that no, like relapses do happen. Like recovery is not you doing yoga on the beach constantly. That's something that I do and that I love. But sometimes I'm still crying on the floor, you know, and it's,
Right.
I'm still who I am in both cases. So I don't know. I think it's really important to speak about how it truly is to be in recovery with a mental health disorder or with addiction or anything that you previously struggled with. The more open you are with both sides of how it is, I think the more people actually understand it for what it is.
And I think what's important about that too is like that's okay, because a lot of people get freaked out being like, oh my gosh, like if Emily even has relapses, then like how am I gonna like get there? It's like it's
Right.
okay if you have relapses, because it's like you said, like if you have more good days than bad days, and even if you don't, if you're better today than you were on a previous day at some point in the last whatever how many years of your life, then like you're okay. It's like just keep moving and try to be better than you have been in the past. And if you're not, you wake up and you try again tomorrow. Like that's really all you can do, and you just keep doing that cycle until you're like, oh, I actually am doing better every day. And I actually do feel good every day. And it takes time, and sometimes you take steps back, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's so good. That just inspired me a lot. Like I feel like dancing right now. 'Cause
Yeah, that's like my little soapbox moment of the night.
that was good. That was so awesome. Yeah. Anything else anybody wants to add with that topic? Because it is important and it has different facets for sure.
I actually have one more thing to add. I think for me, sort of relating to this, in the past, I have had to, this is hard for me to talk about, but I did struggle with an eating disorder at one point in my life, so I'm recovered now, but at one point there was I had people coming up to me saying, oh my gosh, where do you get your self-control from? How do you do that? How do you get yourself to look like that? And on the inside, people were praising me, but I was essentially just miserable. I felt terrible, and I was getting all this positive reinforcement for it. And it was tough because they were glamorizing it. They were making it seem like it was this great thing. And how did you get like that? And it was hard because I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to deal with it because I was in such pain and I was really suffering. So it's hard for people to understand that it's not a diet, is not a way of life. It's essentially a way of controlling. It's a control thing, self-control, trying to control other aspects of your life and stuff like that. So that was one thing for me that I've really struggled with, especially with glamorization of mental illness, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's huge.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's huge. Like, thanks for sharing that, because that's such a thing when I think that contributes to like making the eating disorders worse, because then you get praised for being so skinny and then you think, okay, I'm doing something good, people are praising me, and you kind of get more obsessed with the way that your body is looking because you're getting the validation on the outside, right?
The reinforcement, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to say with eating disorders in specific, like there are huge communities on like Instagram and Twitter and like I'm not going to name them because I don't want people to seek them out, but there's these huge communities promoting it and saying like, good job, like great job fasting, like you can do it, you can make it, and things like that. And it's like to do is say like, you don't have to do this to these people, but like it's just like you said, it's a control thing. It's not like you can't just say like, oh, you look better if you put on some weight. They're gonna be like, that doesn't help, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So like these communities, I think they can be like really damaging and dangerous. So it's
very destructive. Yeah.
Yeah, there's even warnings. Like if you go on Instagram and you see them, it says like caution, there's graphic content here, and like. So it's not like they don't know about it, and they know that it's something that's going on that's damaging, and I don't know. I personally think they should be doing something about that because I don't think those communities are helpful. And I've even seen posts of people saying like like, oh, I'm in the like eating disorders unit right now, and like my nurse doesn't know that I like snuck onto Instagram because she took away my Wi-Fi, but like I got on 3G, so like now I can post more like.
Oh my God, I didn't know
Yeah.
that existed.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it's sad because like, yeah, it's just sad.
It's sad, yeah.
Yeah. Very similar, Emily. I've experienced, so I was kind of alluding to. I have a problem with like, because of like depression and anxiety, I've always had a problem with self-medicating by partying really hard. And, you know, it's hard because there have been so many people in my life who just like, it's fun to get that drunk. It's fun to do that many drugs. It's fun. It's fun. Megan's always a party, and it's like you gotta. It's been such a journey in my life to find people who are going to like me when I'm not on Molly at a party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're gonna like me when I'm just kind of sad and I want to play like Smash Brothers on the TV, instead of going out and having a crazy time.
Right.
And especially since that is like, you know, like being, you know, like being super thin and all this stuff, like going out and having a crazy time is something that's really glorified in our
Absolutely.
culture and in our media. And especially if you go out and do that and you get addicted to things, like people have absolutely, it's hard for people to understand that this is all part of a big issue of, you know, self-love and self-worth and escapism, and that you need help and you need to get away from those substances, and you just need the love and support from other people to deal with the actual problems that are on your plate. But it can be really difficult when someone tells me I'm so much fun and I'm on the worst bender. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're not happy.
And I'm not happy. I'm not happy and I'm not having fun. But because, like, you know, I'm out of it and I'm just, like, rolling with, you know, the moment, everyone thinks, like, I'm such a blast.
Right.
They want to encourage that behavior, and it's just, like, you got to find your positive community, your positive posse, like, the people who are going to support you in getting better and are going to ask you the hard questions of, like, Megan, you know, do you want to go out to that party tonight, or do you think you should stay in, you know, eat some proper food, get some proper sleep, and work on a project.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so that support system really helps you. That's like what I'm getting from like your experiences. I mean, with the substance abuse, you really benefit from the support system that keeps you in check and has your best interest at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, totally.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours and hours.
That's really good.
Right? There's so many topics that we could really dive into, so we could for sure do this again too, but anything else that you guys are thinking that would be helpful for anybody to kind of hear at this point with everything we've talked about tonight?
You are not alone. 100%. That is the biggest thing. When I first started experiencing anxiety, people, I think, don't even understand what that means, like feeling alone. Like, I literally, when I first started experiencing anxiety, was so sure that I was the only person ever on the face of the earth to have experienced. Like, I was like, there's no way that any of my friends even know what this is. Like, I had no clue that, like, possibly someone who I ate lunch with every day even had anxiety. Like, I totally felt alone. And I was working at the Calgary Stampede, and the first day I went in and I was like, I have just started, like literally it started a week before that. I was like, I've just started experiencing like really bad anxiety, and I'm not sure like how this is gonna go. And the supervisor was like, oh man, like I get really bad anxiety every time I start something new too. And I was like, what? Like, no way. And like, I actually literally thought I was the only one on the face of the earth. And that was like the biggest, like, aha moment that like, I was like, oh, I can do this because she did this. And then this other coworker, she looked like really uncomfortable one day, and I was like, are you okay? Like, you look really nervous. And she's like, yeah, I have really bad anxiety. And I was like, what? Like 2 people within like 15 minutes told me. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, and like I can't even explain it to people. Like I literally I literally thought I was the only person. And I know I said that a million times, but like just a weird feeling to be like, there's no way anyone has ever felt this way because I never heard anyone talk about it. So like now everyone watching this knows that they're not alone, and I think that's like a huge message to spread. And I think it is spread a lot, but it's not maybe spread in that way that like other people have felt that they were the only one on earth with this, and like you're not. Like if you Google the symptoms and you don't have all of the symptoms, or you have some symptoms that maybe aren't on the list, that doesn't mean that you're the only one that's experiencing that too. Because like I can look at anxiety symptoms and sometimes I identify with half of them, sometimes I identify with a whole bunch that aren't even on the list. And so then like that can make you feel alone. But like there's just so much with like anxiety and depression that varies with individuals. So like no matter how much you vary from maybe like the norm of what you think the disorder is, you're still not alone. I guarantee someone else has felt these symptoms. Like Emily and I even had this like weird moment where we both have this like tickle in our throat that makes us really anxious. And I was like, I'd never heard of anyone having that before. I thought that was like the strangest thing. It's not on, you can't find that on symptom lists, like tickle in throat. It's like just something that makes me really anxious when that happens.
You want to
like what?
I had that today. I have like a gland that's like weird today, and I like for 2 seconds I almost bought into it. I was like, I'm gonna die because of my throat. Like,
yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, like I never heard of anyone having that though, and then she said that and I was like, the heck? So like there's so many little tiny things like that that differ, but like there is someone else that has it. So yeah. That's a long-winded version of you're not alone.
I love it. I love that long-winded version. I definitely have a message, and that's, all right, people listening, you're worth my time. You're worth anybody's time. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter what you blame yourself for. It doesn't matter how little you think you are worth. You are worth my time. You are worth Emily's time. You are worth all of our time. Just reach out. We got you.
Yeah.
Love it.
I just got chills.
Me too. You spoke to me there.
Emily agreed. Go before me.
Okay, the one last thing I want to touch on, and something I wish I would have known, is that there's always, always, always help available for you. You can always find someone to talk to. You can find a therapist that works for you, that's sensitive to your needs. You can find a doctor who can help you, prescribe you if you need medication. There's always help available. All you need to do is reach out and ask.
Yeah. Asking.
Yes.
True.
Asking.
Clap it out for that. That's I think my final message, and this is kind of like something I overuse and I say a lot, but I think it's my key message, is to believe in your power. Like there's absolutely nothing that you cannot do if you decide I am doing this. Your mind is highly trainable. You can really trust in yourself and get yourself out of absolutely anything if you decide, your mind decides, I am going to do this. So don't ever give up and believe in your power, because that is all that you really need to move forward with anything that you're struggling with. So believe in your power, believe in your power, believe in your power, believe in your power. Repeat it to yourself so many times until you really believe that, you know what, maybe I'm going to try to believe in my power, and see where that takes you.
Love it.
Awesome.
So good.
All right. Thank you so much for those who are watching. Been recorded. We'll put this up. Also tomorrow we should definitely post up some of our favorite bits from tonight and advice I feel like there's a lot of stuff we can do as a collaborative follow-up from this that I think is going to be really beneficial for our communities. And yeah, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Emily, Katie, Elizabeth. I know you're gone. But thank you so much for having this conversation. And
Thank you.
Thank
cool
you.
if we did it sometime.
Oh, what did you just say?
Oh, I just said I think it'd be cool if we did it again sometime. That's all.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll have it up and keep the conversation going. And I'm so glad that we're in a collaboration now between our two, the company and then the organization, which is awesome. So stoked.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Awesome. So have a good night, everyone. And if you're listening to this at any point in time, well, have a good day, afternoon, morning, wherever in time you're standing.
Sounds great. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.